Many indigenous people believe that you should never whisper at night. It can cause evil spirits to appear and even follow you home. These are the first words on the blurb of Never Whistle at Night, an indigenous dark fiction anthology edited by Shane Hawke and Theodore C. Van Alst Jr. And this is the book I'm going to talk to you about today. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Library of the Weird. I hope you're doing fine wherever you are. I certainly am, and I'm really excited to talk to you about Never Whistle at Night. And just a small disclaimer for those of you who've accidentally clicked on this video and already read this book. At the very end of the video I've included a few books I would recommend to you if you liked this one. And with that out of the way, let's talk about this book. When I first heard about this one, I was immediately hooked. I was really excited. In the last years, I really came to love indigenous horror fiction. This book even includes a foreword by one of my favorite authors ever, Stephen Graham Jones, whom most of you probably know from his novel, The Only Good Indians. I was expecting excursions into native mythology, learning a lot about native culture, and probably really having my heart ripped apart by stories not only about the history, but also about the real current life, present life of native people in the US and in Canada. And yeah, what can I say? I got all of this. This book was released by Vintage Books, who belong to Penguin. It is about 400 pages long and features 26 stories by indigenous authors. It also has this great cover made by Perry de la Vega. The editors are Shane Hawke, who has released another indigenous horror anthology called Anoka, and Theodore C. Van Alst Jr., who has written books like Sacred Smoke, Sacred City, and Pour One for the Devil. And like I said, there's an introduction by Stephen Graham Jones. He kind of contextualizes the stories in here and gives a bit of insight into native storytelling. The 26 stories in here are all very, very different. Oh boy, talk about range. There are so many different types of stories. There are very supernatural stories that feature magic and creatures from mythology and stuff like that. But there are also stories that don't feature any supernatural beings and lean on the horrors of the very reality of native people, for example. There are fun stories that will probably make you laugh, and there are stories that are very, very horrible and will arouse very different kinds of emotions. Then when it comes to genres, there's body horror in here, there's weird horror, there are ghost stories, and there are almost thriller-like tales. So yeah, a very, very broad range, and there's basically something for everyone. And right from the get-go, the first story called Kushtuka by Mathilda Zeller already shows what is awaiting you. Kashtuka is a story about a very complex family situation, which is something you find in lots of these stories, like the interactions between native families, the interactions between native families and white people, for example. And yeah, you have this right in the first story. And our female main character has kind of to navigate all of this, and the story takes a really bloody turn when there's a supernatural being called Kushtuka showing up. I really liked the story, and yeah, I knew what I was in for, and it's a very great first story. Another story I really liked is called Snakes Are Born in the Dark, written by D.H. Trujillo, in which our native male character visits some lithographs made by natives somewhere in the desert, and he's there with his cousin and her boyfriend, and his boyfriend makes a lot of very racist remarks, and he kind of vandalizes these lithographs, and the native male character and this white boyfriend really start to fight, and when the fight escalates, the car keys go missing, and this is where the story really takes a turn, and I liked it very much. It's kind of a fun story, especially the ending is makes you smile a bit, I think. Yeah, I really like that one. Then there's, for example, Night in the Chrysalis, written by Tiffany Morris, who is probably most famous for her horror poems. She has a poem collection out, of which I currently forgot the name. I'm definitely putting it into the video description. But yeah, I like the story. It's about Sisi, a native woman whose life got uprooted. She lost a child, I think. She was left by her boyfriend or husband, and now she's trying to start a new life. She moves into a new house, and yeah, on the very first night, she notices some very, very strange things happening. And yeah, she has to investigate if the house is maybe haunted, because yeah, probably her life depends on it. And the story that stuck the most with me, and it's one I will probably think about for a very long time to come, is called Sundays by David Heska van Blewijden. This tale features no supernatural elements, and all the horrors in here come from real things that happened to an old man, which is our main character, 40 years ago, when he was a young boy living in a boarding school. And if you don't know about these boarding schools native children were sent to, please read up on that. The stories are really, really horrible. The native children basically went there to be stripped of their culture. They weren't allowed to speak their language. They weren't allowed to pray to their gods or basically live their culture. And in the last years, people found tons of mass graves next to these former boarding schools with thousands of dead children, I believe. So please educate yourself on that, because it explains a lot about native culture today. And yeah, in this story, our main character confronts his former teacher and priest who did horrible things to him as a child. And yeah, I don't want to spoil anything. There's a moral at the end of the story, which I have to read again because I didn't really get it, I think. But I think like is the wrong word, but yeah, let's say I kind of liked the story. And yeah, it really stuck with me. I had to think about it a lot. So you probably can guess that I really enjoyed this anthology, and I very much did. I think it was really, really good. It was well written. I gave it 5 stars. I enjoyed almost all of the stories, which rarely happens. Usually it's kind of like 50-50 or something like that. And like the only real criticism I have that I sometimes disagreed with the order of the stories, because the stories are so broad and so different. Sometimes I felt like there wasn't really a flow between the stories, and the transitions were sometimes really, really rough. But all in all, I really enjoyed this anthology. I hope you do too if you pick it up, and I hope you will. And with that, that's my review. And I quickly want to tell you about 3 books that you probably will like if you like this one. So the first book I want to talk about is Taaktumi, which is a collection of horror stories compiled and edited by Neil Christopher. It features stories set in the Arctic, and all the stories were written by native people from the very north of North America. I also did a video on this one, which you can find here. I really did enjoy it, so please pick this up as well. The next book shouldn't really come as a surprise. It's The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This, I think, won a ton of awards. I really liked it. It's basically a revenge story, and it also features a glimpse into the life that probably many Native Americans lead. And if you're interested, I also found this book on a list when I searched for something like books with the same vibe as Hereditary. So if you watched the movie Hereditary and you liked it, probably pick up this book. And the last book I want to talk about is Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. This is a book about young Native women who kind of brings weird things back to the waking world when she has like really, really bad nightmares, and she's going back home to her kind of complex family situation and tries to find out what these dreams are about. I also made a video about this one that you can find here. I really liked this. And with that, I hope you pick up any of the books I talked to you about. I hope you liked my review, and I hope I see you next time. Goodbye.